Mac, the draft is coming up 3 weeks from today. The Cavs have the 20th pick. They don't have a second-round pick. Some previous 20th overall picks. Last year was Cam Whitmore. In 2022, it was Malachi Branham. 2021, it was Jalen Johnson, who's turned out to be a stud in Atlanta. Precious Achiuwa in 2020. Matisse Thybulle in 2019. There have been some pretty good 20th overall picks in the last couple of drafts. This year's draft, Mac, is a complete crapshoot top to bottom.
Yeah.
But who are some of the guys you have looked at and identified as targets you think the Cavs should at least be interested in as they get their draft board ready for later this month?
The top three to me, and bear in mind, we have no idea how highly some of these NBA teams covet these guys. You've seen the mocks consistently move and move and move because, as you said, there's no consensus number one, and it appears to be somewhat of a watered down draft. But the three names that have really stuck out to me specifically in regards to the Cavs are Deron Holmes, huge fan. And being from Dayton, Ohio, I'm sorry, there's a little bit of bias there. I got to point that out. But I mean, yeah, huge fan of him. Got a breakdown coming of him. Tyler Smith, he is also another developmental type of guy that I do see a possible fit with the Cavaliers eventually. May not be a day one contributor. And Tristan da Silva.
Yes. Glad you said him. That's my guy. So you start.
So in regards to Da Silva, man, there's just a lot to like there. Obviously, the size. That's the one thing that really sticks out to me. The Cavaliers need a big wing just very, very badly. The 3-point shooting, that is something that any wing that the Cavaliers, really any player, I believe, the Cavaliers draft is going to need to be able to bring to the table. So that is number one. The shooting, the size, those are all on the table for me. He's shown semblances of switchability on the defensive end where he can possibly D up a couple of different position groups. So those three to me are the names that stick out. Some dark horses, maybe on Jalen Tyson. That is a name to me that really has stuck out, but the size is still a concern there. But those are some of the names that really have caught my attention. If I had to nail it down to one prospect right now who I do believe will be in range for the Cavaliers, it is Holmes, man. I'm sorry, Mikey, I do not think Da Silva will be there at 20. I think somebody's going to snatch him up. But if he's gone, you got to give me Holmes.
Yeah, I like Da Silva, and you look at the mocks and any of like the big boards, he's ranked between 14 and 22.
Yeah.
So he should be in the range where the Cavs are picking. With this draft, a guy who's ranked 23rd in the big board could go third, and I wouldn't be shocked. And I've talked to guys from the Western Conference, guys from the Eastern Conference. There's literally no consensus whatsoever on who the top 5 or 6 guys in this draft are. I'm telling you, it's going to be wild, and guys are going to get picked highly that you're like, he was in the ringers. He was the 34th pick in the ringers, and he was a lot like, wow. I'm just telling y'all now, be ready for it. The reason I like Da Silva, Mac, is, and full disclosure, I had never seen him play before the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
My introduction to Tristan da Silva was when Colorado made the second round in the NCAA tournament. I've went back and watched a ton of film now. And on him in particular, he's just a connector.
Yes.
Like, he didn't need the ball. He was a guy who, when he got his opportunities, was capable of shooting. He was a driver. I don't think he'll be a knockdown, like traditional 3-and-D guy, but he certainly isn't a stiff who can't shoot. He's 6'8", 6'9". He's a really good passer. They ran offense through him as the high post facilitator. And he just seemed, no matter what the Colorado Buffaloes were asking him to do, whether it was handle the ball against this press, whether it was facilitate, whether it was score, whether it was defend, he kind of just fit in and did anything with ease. And no matter which game you watched, whether it was the tournament, the Pac-12 championship, or during the regular season, he just seamlessly flowed in and out of games, Mac. And that feels like if the Cavs are going to keep the core 4 together, which once again, we talked about earlier, we're both in favor of breaking it up if you're trying to win a championship. That's the kind of guy you need who can seamlessly fit in without taking too much away from the guards while also being able to feed the bigs down low. So to me, he kind of represents the best of both worlds in size and defense, while also adding value on the offensive end of the court without taking away from everybody else. A couple of prospects I mentioned as well that are mocked to the Cavs and or right in that same situation. Keyshawn George out of Miami, Jacoby Walter out of Baylor, Johnny Furphy. I always pronounce the name. It's a Furphy, right? Out of Kansas. He's a big shooting white guy who kind of looks like Lauri Markkanen, but doesn't have the game like Lauri Markkanen and Carl Carrington.
Bub.
They all have upsides. They all have flaws. When you're picking 20th overall, that's what you're going to get. Bronny James is right around that range, possibly, by the way. The Cavs do have a first-round pick to use. They don't have a second-round pick, so if they're going to take Bronny, that's the spot they're going to take him. I would not anticipate that happening, but for the content purposes, I'd be all for it, Mac. But I do think in a weaker draft at the top like this, the chances of the Cavs getting an impact player at 20, I think, is actually higher than it would be in a traditional draft where you know the best 15 guys are going in the lottery or 14, whatever. And then you're kind of stuck picking outside of the next at 20. I think in this draft, like, of the first 14 picks, 6 of those guys could be studs, 8 could be duds. And of the 10 best dudes in the draft, you have a chance to a higher percentage of getting one of those top 10 later than usual, just because there's no consensus and no team really has a good feel on any of these guys. Do you feel the same way, or you think I'm overthinking the Cavs' chances at 20 here?
No, I honestly do believe that they could end up getting a day one contributor. It's very possible. I'm not going to say it's likely, but I do believe, depending upon who that selection is, I do think Da Silva of this group of guys could certainly be that guy. He's certainly plug and play in that area. Seems to always make an impact. But yeah, I mean, I think the chance of them getting a day one contributor is particularly high depending upon the position that they select. If you do keep the core 4 intact, if you select a guard, not a good chance that that guard sees the court a ton in year one. If you're going wing, I think there's absolutely a case to be made that that guy will play some minutes or have a shot at earning a rotation spot, or at least have a battle in camp. If you go the route of a third big, if you keep the bigs together, or if you move one of the two and you want to still go big, I do believe that a player like Holmes, a player like Tyler Smith eventually could end up factoring in to the rotation at some point. So I do think that there's a pretty high chance that they get somebody who can make an impact at some level.
And one other name to mention, I don't think he'll fall. His upside's too high. But Ron Holland, a guy at G League Ignite, who was the #1 overall prospect coming out of high school. His offensive game is a work in progress. But from an athleticism and a defensive standpoint at the wing position would be a really nice fit. Think Isaac Okoro-ish, but 6'8.5", 6'9". And that's a really good start when you're going to build upon someone late in the lottery or late in the first round.